Jimmy Fallon was the new kid on the late night block when he took over the show in 2014. With the long-running series remaining a staple on television since 1954, some episodes have been known to make us cringe. Hi, I'm Stacey Taylor and today I'm counting down the top 10 celebrities who destroyed their career on Jimmy Fallon. So what celebrities do you think didn't leave such a great impression, and let us know in the comments below. Starting off our list today, in the number 10 spot we have Pete Davidson. Saturday Night Live star Pete Davidson made his Tonight Show debut in 2018 to chat about his short-lived engagement to his then fiancée Ariana Grande. The interview started off easy enough though, with the comedian gushing about the relationship. However, when Fallon suggested that the late night show itself would be a perfect place for the Hollywood duo to get married, Davidson clapped back by saying, "Why do people care? It's very weird. It's weird cause like the president's trying to pardon himself," and he then went on to make a reference about Donald Trump's affair with Stormy Daniels. The audience responded to the remark with some scattered laughter, while Jimmy himself laughed it off but looked a little bit uncomfortable. Davidson then went on to throw a couple more profanities throughout the interview. Finally, Jimmy told Pete that he couldn't say those words on live television, and then he jokingly told the comedian he was fired from the show. Pete then went on to tell Jimmy that he didn't care and he would just go on the Seth Meyers show, before stating that he had Seth's number but not Jimmy's. Jimmy then quickly retorted by saying, "And you're never going to get it either." The entire exchange was then met with shocking howls from the studio crowd. Quickly, Pete and Fallon's awkwardness together made for such a comedic gold moment that NBC appeared to excuse the former verbal hiccups and gave him the green light to return to the show. Number 9. Lea Michele. When Jimmy Fallon welcomed former Glee star Lea Michele onto The Tonight Show back in January to discuss her Funny Girl Broadway debut, Michele wouldn't be the only big-name star on the show that evening, as The Whale and Stranger Things star Sadie Sink also joined Jimmy on the sofa for a chat. But when the primetime talk show invited the two to take part in a game of charades, some eagle-eyed fans claimed to spot a rather awkward moment after they pointed out that Lea pushed Sink out of her way. The moment then came after Fallon welcomed the two to come on from behind the scenes, and she awkwardly stood in front of Sadie before Sadie moved out of the way so Lea could slide into her spot. Lea also cut Sadie off when she was making her way to the sofa. The outcome of the episode would then have fans talking and smashing Lea on various social media platforms, as they labeled her to be an actress that was a rude, mean girl. Number 8. Cardi B. Cardi B is just as well known for her over-the-top demeanor and trademark catchphrases as she is for her catchy beats and overall lyrical flow. So you think that before Jimmy brought her on the show, he would have done some research on what he should have expected when bringing the Bronx native onto his show in 2017. Equipped with all her signature sounds and quick-witted jokes, the Bodak rapper was indeed in full Cardi B mode. The problem? It looked like Jimmy didn't quite know how to handle her unique energy, which made for an awkward interview that left some fans cringing. At the start of the segment, the artist had already begun with her strange noises, which Jimmy seemingly attempted to ignore at first, after he asked Cardi B about her NYC upbringing, to which she responded by saying her signature sound, leaving Jimmy to simply just sit there in silence before taking a sip of water. As the interview went on, he appeared to fall more and more into this hilarious groove with the rapper, but the whole thing just came off as a pretty uncomfortable moment, as Twitter users even put it. So entertaining for Cardi, but really awkward for Jimmy. Number 7. Shawn Mendes. Singer and Canadian Shawn Mendes had not one but two pretty uncomfortable appearances on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, with the hitmaker who first went on the show in 2016 to help the host with his #fall song segment. But just as Mendes was finishing the second song, he would call Fallon out for giving him a late cue for beginning his singing, before making a number of jokes in order to point out the comedian's age. While the audience went on to laugh at the first joke, it would quickly stop as Shawn went on to throw similar verbal blows Jimmy's way, like when he told the host that he sounded like his grandfather. The joke was then met with awkward cricket sounds from both the audience and Jimmy, and it totally gave off this like really cringy vibe. Somehow Shawn was able to return to the show 2 years later, and he would go on to open up about his performance with Justin Timberlake at the 2018 iHeart Music Festival. Jimmy then heckled his guests over who Justin might just like more as the banter continued on throughout the interview. Things progressively then got a little little bit more awkward, as Jimmy's final move to squash the playful beef was to share his infamous over-the-top laugh. Number 6. Donald Trump. Jimmy Fallon's interview in 2016 with Donald Trump would leave countless Americans disappointed and enraged. With the Tonight Show host keeping things pretty lighthearted, he did his best to avoid pushing any political buttons. However, he did finish off his interview with a notorious piece of resistance after he playfully messed up Donald's wig, with the move bringing Donald on the show being widely criticized, eventually costing Fallon 21% of his audience by the following year, as fans were furious with the host, to point out he would later admit in the Hollywood Reporter Awards Chatter podcast that days following the incident, it was a downtime for him and he was very sorry as he didn't want to make anyone angry. Donald then came out to accuse the host of just whimpering before claiming that Jimmy just needs to be a man already. By 2019, The Tonight Show would then bounce back with top ratings, but it seemed like for Fallon's image, it still remained somewhat tainted. Number 5. Martin Short. Comedian legends Steve Martin and Martin Short aren't just longtime showbiz besties, but they are also absolutely hilarious together, ever since they starred in the 1986 film Three Amigos. These two have been known for their fabulous banter. However, when they appeared together on The Tonight Show in 2019, they used the opportunity to rip into the host Jimmy Fallon, turning the interview in somewhat more of a Comedy Central roast than a casual late-night appearance with rapid-fire jokes aimed at the talk show host. Alleged fakeness, with Martin beginning the show by saying this is the greatest show on television because there is no host in the late night that pretends to care the way you do. I mean, no one captures phoniness the way you do, it's a gift. He would then take things a little too far when he went on to say that it was really rare that Jimmy's teeth looked so good even though he was taking narcotics. Short then went on to declare, "You prove that all handsome white men can make it in show business." Near the end of the roast, Jimmy just looked more noticeably quieter than he usually does, as he was trying to recover from all the hurtful things that were said so he can move along with the interview. Number 4. Louis C.K. Just once before 5 women accused him of making unwanted advancements was exposed by the New York Times in November of 2017, comedian Louis C.K. was making his rounds on the talk show circuit to promote his Netflix stand-up special. He and Jimmy Fallon seemingly got along just fine at the top of his appearance on The Tonight Show that March. Well, that is until the host appeared to forget how to use his brain, when Louis began the interview by telling Jimmy how much he loves to take naps. Midway through his rave about activity, Jimmy would ask him, "You like it better than sleep?" which it all took to leave Louis looking utterly perplexed. And then he went on to grace us all with the most epic side-eye before joking, "You really? That's stupid. You just said that. That was a dumb thing to say. That was such a dumb thing to say." The comedian then went on to rip into Jimmy further when he offered multiple analogies showcasing just why he felt like the question was so absurd. For his part, the former SNL star tried to save the entire situation through his rationality before Louis finally dropped the banter with a chuckle, asking him if he could just get past this part. Number 3. Ricky Gervais. Notorious for his style of self-deprecating cringe humor, Ricky Gervais admittedly has no filter. In a 2019 interview with the New York Times Magazine, the comedian explained that the notion of himself taking things a little too far is one of the things he does for comedy, laughing at the wrong thing because you know what's right, with its self-professed view of what's right and wrong, if that makes sense of what he said. Particularly through the lens of comedy, it should come to no surprise that the British entertainer immediately latched on to Fallon's fake compliments during his 2017 appearance on the Late Night Show. After the host began telling Ricky that he looked great, which was enough to send his guests into a long-winded rant about his appearance when he said, "I look great, is that sarcasm? You see, this is the thing with you. The talk show. Oh, you look great. Even though, look at me, of course I don't look great." The creator of the British version of The Office then hushed his hilarious 4.5-minute charade about weight gain with a string of profanity, causing Fallon to look away from the camera and playfully cut his gut off so he could attempt to continue on with the interview. Number 2. Blake Shelton. It's hard to imagine annoying Blake Shelton as he's a laid-back country singer. However, when he nearly lost his cool when he appeared on The Tonight Show in 2017, he kinda lost respect from a lot of his fans, with Jimmy kicking things off by heckling Blake over his cover for his 11th studio album, Texoma Shore. With what began as a light-hearted humor conversation, it would turn Blake to have a furious moment. With Jimmy asking Blake what he was thinking and about the memories he was in, Blake would turn sour and he would try to keep things friendly, as the audience laughed as he would tell Jimmy he was wishing he was actually there instead of on his show. With the comedian not noticing the slight hint that Blake was trying to urge the comedian to move on, Jimmy began to bring up Blake's upbringing by imitating Southern accents and stereotypes. The voice judge looked semi-annoyed as the so-called joke went on and he refused to laugh at Fallon's sketch. However, after a couple more minutes of banter, Blake appeared to have enough and finally snapped at Fallon by saying, "Will you interview me for God's sake?" When Jimmy went on to finally interview the country singer, he would then seemingly mutter, "Thank God." It just seems like Blake isn't the type of person who has a good sense of humor, and Jimmy should have known better than to bring him on the show since he is the king of humor. Number 1. John Oliver. While he's famously engaging and animated with his guests, Jimmy Fallon appeared to tone things down a bit when he sat down for an interview with late-night rival John Oliver in 2018. When Jimmy asked John about his role as Zazu in the live-action remake of The Lion King, Oliver would say, "I'm a movie star. You respect me, Jimmy. I'm a movie star now, and some things are about to change around here." The British comedian then went on to discuss his experience singing the Disney classic, "I Just Can't Wait to Be King." Oliver then went on to brush off the production's note that he sang great and would become an ironic remark, especially considering Fallon's next move. When Jimmy turned his attention to Oliver's small role in his award-winning HBO show, Jimmy would start things off by saying, "The best title of any show ever," without skipping a beat. John then responded by giving him a blank expression, saying, "The best title, wow, that sounds like fanning me with fake praise." Jimmy, "I really love the title, it goes downhill once it's finished," but it seems like even if the two were not taking things seriously, that John was just a little too full of himself. Well, that's all for this video, my little peaches, and until the next one, remember to stay juicy.